SaharaTV, you are welcome. This is a time where we bring you our crack panel to do justice to post-election matters in Nigeria's election 2015. Joining me in the studio right now, no strangers at all, both my guests. On my immediate left, we have Dr. Wumi Akintide, who obviously needs no introduction to our viewers. And then there's also next to him, Dr. Bola Omotosho. Dr. Omotosho is a Nigerian-born New York politician, and he also actually is no stranger as far as I'm concerned, and everybody should be concerned. You're welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's start this discussion by asking you, what does a Buhari victory entail for Nigerians?
Buhari's victory, coming after 50 years after our independence, is a novelty. It's a change. In fact, a very apocalyptic change, I would call it. Because we've waited for this for more than 50 years, like I said. For people who may not understand, after independence, we had all these action groups, SNC and MPC. And after the military took over, and then the civilian came in again, all these parties just changed their names. MPC at one point became MPN. At another point, it became PDP. In fact, it became NRC. And at another point, it became PDP. Same thing with Action Group and same thing with SNC. But what is instructive in all of this is that the opposition has never been given a chance to rule in Nigeria. And yet we say we have been practicing democracy. We started with parliamentary democracy, where it is assured that the opposition is considered the government in waiting, should the government in power fumble. But all the 6 years, up to 1966 that it was practiced, it was only one party, MPC and NCNC coalition, that was ruling. Of course, after the coup, the military came over. And the military ruled for so many years, I think 38 years or thereabout. And then we had the civilian government come over. And when the civilian came over again, they started the same thing. Same party has been ruling Nigeria in different names, with different names. So that we have an opposition member getting elected and becoming president is unprecedented in the history of Nigeria. And that's why we feel that it's almost a revolution.
Wow, that's really interesting. So it's even more historic than I actually thought. Thanks for shedding so much light on this situation. Dr. Omotosho, can I throw the same question to you?
Well, thank you, Kwesi. Well, with these election, the most important part of it is Nigeria have come of age, and it's a smooth transition, which, barring all odds, especially some of the predictions, even by the Western world, that 2015 will either make or break Nigeria. Yeah. Nigeria have shown that we have come of age, and we are mature enough to run a free and fair election, and even more maturity on the part of the incumbent, which is President Goodluck Jonathan, to have congratulated General Buhari for his successful election. Having said that, it's phenomenal that being the world's most populous black nation, we just set the pace. That yes, in Africa, good things are still coming out of that place, and Nigeria is being the giant of Africa, taking the lead by organizing a successful election, free and fair, and congratulatory each other without shed of blood.
No doubt about that at all. I'm really proud. Yep.
If I could add a word to that. Thank you, Dr. Omotosho. That was excellent. You know, before now, people used to think of South Africa as the model, the leader. And it is so because of the great leadership of Nelson Mandela and all that he did after apartheid. But now, Like Dr. Omotosho has said, Nigeria has reclaimed its position in the Committee of Nations in Africa. I couldn't be happier. I couldn't believe my eyes as I saw General Buhari and President Jonathan embrace yesterday at the Presidential Lodge.
Powerful signal.
And these were two gladiators who a few days ago were daggers drawn.
That's something I'm sure Dr. Omotosho understands very well, being a politician, right?
Yes,
because
right.
You have to draw daggers, but at the end of it, you have to like sheath those daggers and then extend the olive branch. Totally. So let's move on. Yes. Dr. Goodluck Jonathan is obviously a doctor too. He promptly conceded and called Dr. Buhari to congratulate him. There's this ongoing debate as to whether it's a heroic move or it's nothing to write home about, being as he did not have a choice. What would you say?
Well, what I'll say to that, based on some of the things that not only out there in the media and some of the things that I know as well, there is a lot of pressure in terms of what goes on behind the scene. And I understand, of course, a lot of world leaders actually were very much interested, including President Obama and even South Africa President and several world Kofi Annan and on and on. They were all very much involved. And even our own elder statesmen, past head of states, were also eager to keep Nigeria one. And with all this pressure that, listen, if the handwriting is on the wall, because the initial congratulatory message came even before the completion of before the announcement by INEC, and all these, everybody was watching carefully, and it set the pace by becoming one of the well-respected elder statesmen by that singular move that no blood being shed worth on his behalf or whatever by anybody who does anything contrary to accepting the verdict of INEC is doing that at their own risk. And that is very phenomenal.
Okay.
Usually, you know, after this kind of eruption, you need a healing moment.
Yeah.
And President Jonathan gave us that healing moment. Within hours of the point at which he became convinced that he could not win. I think that was really great. But one thing I want you to remember, President Obasanjo described him, he said at one point in this campaign, he said he figured it out that President Jonathan was trying to play Gbagbo. Gbagbo was the president of Ivory Coast. Gbagbo was in exactly the same situation that Jonathan found himself at this election. Gbagbo had all the advice from all the world leaders like Dr. Omotosho has reminded us. But he still went ahead. He refused to take heed and to take all the advice. So Jonathan had a choice to turn them down and then go on the verge of causing trouble. But he did not do that. And even before the INEC chairman, Jega, declared the result and pronounced Buhari elected, he mustered the courage to pick up the phone and call the guy who has just defeated him.
I don't know if you have heard...
I think that was great.
Totally. And I don't know if you have heard the audio clip from that phone conversation.
I listened to it.
But it's so touching. They're calling each other excellencies, and it's really cordial. I think that it did a lot for Nigerian unity.
I was...
Talking of Nigerian unity, though, does General Buhari have what it takes to reconcile and unite Nigeria after such a grueling battle? The PDP guys need to be brought over. It's no more parties now. It's one Nigeria. Does General Buhari have what it entails to hold Nigeria together in that sense?
I believe he does. And I will tell you why I believe he does. You are speaking to a man who has been knowing this general ever before he became a general. I knew him when he was a full lieutenant, getting ready to be promoted to captain, and from captain to major. That was the period I worked as an administrator at the Army headquarters of the Nigerian Army, way back from 1968 to 1970. So I knew that when people talk about him, he was incorruptible. He has always been that way all his life. And that was why I would take a shot. I would take a shot to have him elected as president. And that was why I was so anxious about him. So talking about your point, whether he had the ability and the capacity to unite the nation, I think he does. And you can take a cue from his first speech after his victory. I don't know whether you have read it. You can see that he has actually is making overtures to all Nigerians, both the PDP and even some of the splinter parties. So I believe he has what it takes is to rule Nigeria at this moment in the life of the nation. Okay. And I believe he will succeed.
All right. Dr. Omotosho, Dr. Jonathan is going out of power, and some have alleged that a lot of his, or some of his party members were corrupt and stuff like that. If General Buhari is going to unite Nigerians, he has to kind of make some concessions. Do you see him prosecuting people for corruption, in the PDP especially?
Well, when you use the word corruption, I would prefer to use it in a different language, that we do things differently back in Nigeria. General Buhari, from his acceptance speech, he said President Jonathan has nothing to be fear of, right? He wants to move forward and unite everybody. His primary goal is not about going about what is missing or what is not missing. He needs to take stock of what is there presently. If you have to take a step back and look at some of the statements of our prior president, which is President Obasanjo, if you measure the some of his statements, yes, he left quite a substantial reserve when he was leaving office, and we all know where it is today, right? But this is not a time of prosecuting anybody. This is a time of, like Dr. Akintide said, uniting and moving forward, healing and getting the job done.
Isn't that compromising, though? Because he promised that he was going to tackle corruption. I believe there's a large number of Nigerians who voted for him on that account. Yes. Wouldn't that be compromising?
It's not about compromising about what you were not there. At the time, he wasn't there. Now he's there. So we have to measure him by what he's going to do. But I will appeal to Nigerians, fellow Nigerians, that we should not raise the expectation too much. Just the same question you're asking, right? You don't need to raise too much expectation, but let's give him the chance and the opportunity to move the country forward. We have the largest economy in Africa and the fastest growing in the world, even by statistics. But the question is, how much is it that is well distributed among the 140 million strong population that we are?
And what is so good in it, because there is a difference between, just like we now say that Nigerians don't agree that there's a difference between corruption and stealing. There's also a difference between fantasy and reality. And there's a difference between playing in the small league or playing in the big league. Now, whatever happened before the election, that was fantasy. Now, Buhari is face to face with reality and the enormity of that problem. It's now face to face with a situation whereby he has to find ways, even if he doesn't have it before, to be acceptable to all the people. And he told Nigerians in his first speech that I'm president not only for the people who voted for me, I'm also president for those who did not vote for me.
Totally.
That is the way it should be. So that being the case, it's going to work out. I want to tell you that corruption, which is one of the reasons some of us voted for him, there is no way corruption can be ended in Nigeria with just one stroke. Overnight. That's not going to be possible.
Mentioned that he says he does not will that.
And then, in fact, if people are alleging that, there were too many corrupt people in PDP, but a lot of the people, the kingpins in APC now, were people who crossed over from PDP to APC. So if they were corrupt there, they probably brought corruption back again to APC. Wow. And even within APC itself, there were corrupt people there. So I guess General Buhari has to be very careful, has to play it safe. And he has said the right thing he should be saying by telling them that, look, I am not going to go after probing people. And if he does that, he will need another 10 years to do the job.
Let me probe that element a bit more. Yeah. So take this scenario: General Buhari decides to tackle corruption in the sense, in the manner that he actually starts probing people in the PDP and even people in the APC.
He said it's not going to do it.
I'm just creating a scenario.
Okay.
Some people suggest that he's going to step on some really big toes.
Oh, sure.
And that is going to affect his presidency.
Definitely.
So you agree?
I agree with that.
Okay.
But
so
what he has said is that he's setting the markers. He said as soon as he's inaugurated, he's going to draw a line in the sand that nobody should cross. And he's going to make himself a public example of that discipline. Because if he draws a line and he himself does not obey the line he has drawn, the whole thing will collapse.
Okay, all right. Let's move the discussion forward. So, Dr. Muhammadu Ali is the Director General for the PDP presidential campaign.
Yes.
In an interview, he mentioned that they lost because of their own, problems that they had internally, and also INEC's ineptitude. Your thoughts, Dr. Omotosho?
Good. You see, anybody can be Monday morning quarterback. Hindsight's 2020. He can say whatever he thinks will make people have sympathy why they lost the election. And at the same time, APC can say, well, this is a strategy that actually worked. The bottom line is the people have spoken. And today, the excitement in Nigeria is because people now felt that, yes, I can go to the votes, I can have my PVC and actually vote, and my vote will count. And that is the impact that this election have had, no matter what anybody says. Now, the election which is coming up in another week from today, people will be looking at so many factors. Maybe they like the person as an individual, or they feel this one will move things forward, or is somebody who will compromise their need. Things will change. So it's not about what he said, oh, they lost because of their internal problem. Of course, there is no party that doesn't have any internal. Even within families, there will be crises. Okay? So,
and in fact, to lend credence to what Dr. Omotosho has said, and I respect that, Dr. Ali, you say Dr. Ali.
Muhammadu Ali, that's his name.
He was the Minister of Education when I was still in the service. He's a wise man. What he has alleged, what he has said is partly correct. Internal troubles of the party. Yeah. But it's not peculiar only to the PDP.
Everywhere.
APC also has its own internal
problems. But
the point to emphasize is that, for example, in America, one of the first tests they give to anybody who will be president in America is how he chooses his vice president. So what that says is that the way you pick those who can best help your interest, who can help get you the result that you deserve, is very, very critical in leadership.
Okay.
Right. Part of the problem of PDP was that some of the people they actually chose to go and be their spokesman, like Faneka, for instance, that man has lost credibility, total credibility. It was a major disaster to be picking that man to be the spokesman because that man lacks credibility. Compare that with Buhari. Buhari picking Professor Osinbajo was a classic. Because where Buhari is lacking, Osinbajo is going to fill up the gap. Osinbajo, that's a professor of law, as smart as hell, and young. And then, so with the two of them working together, I believe Nigeria is going to be the winner.
Winning combination, okay.
Exactly.
So let's turn to President Jonathan for a second. Why did you think he lost? Dr. Omotosho, why did President Jonathan lose, you think?
Why he lost?
Yeah.
So you want me to campaign for him or give him an advice? Right.
That was the advice that came too late.
Too late, a little too late. Thank you. Well, having run for an office myself, it's not an easy or good feeling the night after the election, understanding that, well, or when the results have been collated, that you're on the losing end, or Somebody else just took the position. Having said that, Nigeria is such a big country, and a lot of awareness is out there. When you're an incumbent, it's not just overnight that you want to share what you've been doing. It has to be an ongoing process. And you cannot be everywhere. You need key strategic folks all around. From day one that you are elected, and this is something that I learned, because currently I'm a committee board chair in the Bronx in New York City. From day one that you've been offering services, you have to take record of it and let people know and be transparent. If in the process you are constantly delegating those responsibilities to folks and asking them to blow your own whistle, they will blow it their own way. And if unfortunately election is coming up and last minute you now want to list all your credentials, at that point in time it's only the result that people want to see. If they did not feel the result, then they will ask you questions. What have you done in the last 4 years? Now that you have opportunity of having been there for 6 years, what did I see? A good example is Chibok Girls, which was in the limelight. And another one is Boko Haram, which have been a menace on the government side, especially its administration. Agreed, all administration in the past have had to fight one insurgent or the other, but they've been able to contain it within a short period, decisively. And these are things that brings negative image to Nigeria as a country, that yes, you have leadership, but they can't do anything internally. And yet we've helped other neighboring countries contributing military forces to various other countries, and we've been successful. So why can't we do things internally to help our own people? And these are the things that the common man worries about
when they go to the polls. Interesting.
Yes.
Dr. Wumi, we're running out of time, but let's try if we can squeeze one or two more questions in. What is he likely to do now? This is purely conjecture, but what is Dr. Jonathan likely to do? Is he going to go back to teach? Is he going to go into agriculture? What do you think he's going to do after he leaves office next month?
I think he's probably going back to teaching. He's a PhD in zoology from the University of Port Harcourt. And not only that, I haven't been president for 6 years. He's gone through the mill. He has a whole lot of choices now. As a matter of fact, the way he considered victory, don't be surprised if Kim Moon, at some point, of the United Nations, might want to invite him and give him an emissary job to do certain things. But before I ended that, because I cannot, this thing is burning in me. Dr. Omotosho has said where he lost. Why? I can only speak for myself about why he lost. But, left to me alone, the moment those 200 and something girls of Chibok were in captivity and he could not do anything to release them, I think that was a major problem. For me, the surgical audio tape from Ado Ekiti was another major problem for me. And then the position of the military. The Nigerian military used to be superb because they don't take sides. But for once, under his regime, nobody could place the military where they should be. That was tragic.
Okay.
So all those things added together were the reason he lost. But what he's going to do after leaving office, the options are so many. In fact, I won't be surprised if President Buhari found him somewhere.
To a
quite apart from going to be perhaps a member of the Council of State, where he would be a fresh outlook there and will be very, very useful in that committee.
Right. So I'm really getting a lot of pressure from the producers to round up. Before we go, though, let me pose the question of the day to you, to both of you. Let's start with Dr. Omotosho. What issues should President Buhari tackle first on his list, hopefully after his 100-day honeymoon period? Very briefly, please.
In fact, from day one, he should tackle the issue of security. And when I say issue of security, take up the insurgent head on and reassure Nigerians, especially from the Northeast, that you still want Nigeria. Now he's an ex-general. He's been there before, and today, now he's the president again, civilian president. Security, security, security. That brings in investment. That brings in all the capital flights that we've had in the last couple of weeks coming back to the country.
Awesome.
There are a lot of things he could do. The first thing, you remember when General Murtala Muhammad became president through the military coup. He was one of the most revered presidents of Nigeria. The first thing he did after making his announcement was to annul the 1973 or 1974 census. Really he took that out. And there are some little things that he could do. For instance, I will expect him to announce that this idea of Your Excellency, His Excellency, and all that, he can say, those who want to be called His Excellency, let them continue to be called His Excellency. As far as I'm concerned, call me Mr. President, I'm okay with that. Because I thought that thing...
What are the issues, though? And I'm trying to round up, Doctor. If you could please round up in about a sentence or two.
Right.
What are the major issues you would wish...
Security, Dr. Omotosho has said it all. Security was a very vulnerable, was its weakest point. It should start doing something about it. And that security is not going to be, to get Boko Haram is not going to happen in 2 days. Not even in a few weeks. Right. It's going to take some time, but it should let the nation know that he's facing the problem like a laser beam.
And he's on top of it all.
And he's on top of it, yes.
So it's seek ye first the
kingdom of God and
security
and his righteousness and all of that things shall be added unto you.
Economics and everything else will fall in place. Thank you so much,
Can I respond to one question about what President Joe Biden
really fast, because
what I think we should do is to recommend him for Nobel Peace Prize.
You mean Dr. Jonathan?
Yes, for accepting the defeat and congratulating.
Yes,
that's definitely going on my Twitter page.
Thank you.
Nobel Peace.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thanks a lot, gentlemen. This has been
I would rather recommend Jega. I would prefer that Jega be the one to receive the
We can have both of them over there. So thank you very much, Dr. Bola Omotosho and Dr. Wumi Akintide. This has been very insightful, and we really hope we should be getting you on this panel lots more. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
This has been a special segment with Erudite Minds, Dr. Bola Omotosho and Dr. Wumi Akintide. SaharaTV, stay tuned. There's more coming.